Hi, do you have a lawn that's mossy, horrible, weedy, looking a bit sorry for itself and just not very happy? It's time to do something about it. Hi, I'm Sean. That's me. I've been looking after lawns for 25 years and I've seen some things over the years. But the process is always the same. We go in, we fix a lawn, we get it looking nice. And then it's down to the customer and what they do over the months and weeks in between. So this here is my process, and it's pretty much the same process I've used for years and years and years. We start off by mowing it really short, because we're not going to be mowing this lawn for about 4 weeks. And I'm just talking to the customer there, he's asking me about a certain weed which was in his borders, and it's actually called Mind Your Own Business, MYOB, so you can have a look at that. So we start off by mowing short, and then the ground is ready, the ground is prepped. The next step is to carry out aeration. Aeration allows air, rain and nutrients to get down. So the aerator machine is a machine that punches holes into the ground using what we call metal tines, Tines. And it's just a hollow piece of metal which pulls the core of soil out. Now here I'm using a hand-held hollow tine aerator hand tool. So these are the cores of soil which have come out, and as you can see they're quite squeezy, so there is some clay in there, and what that means is it tends to get really wet. When we get a lot of rain, it's not draining through nice and easy, and when an environment is nice and wet, it encourages moss, because moss likes damp and shady conditions. So we have to improve the conditions, and we improve the conditions by scarifying, which deals with what's happening above the ground. I've just had to switch to using my phone from my camera, getting problems with my camera, SD card errors. So basically what I'm trying to say is that the soil cores which have been ejected are quite sticky, and what that means is that there's a little bit of clay in there, which means that basically when it's wet and raining a lot, which we're getting a lot more of, things don't drain through quite as easily, and because they don't drain through, it creates a wet environment. A moss loves wet, damp, shady conditions, so that is why this lawn has a lot of moss. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the opportunity to put some horticultural gypsum on the lawn. Now I've got some granular here, but you can get powdered, etc. So this is going to go down. It's a little bit of a catch-22. I should have scarified first and then aerated and cleared it all off and then put some of this on, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to clear these cores off, and then we've got the holes exposed, and I'm going to put some of this on so at least some is going down the holes. Then we're going to scarify, and then we'll do the overseed and top dress, and we will put a little bit more on at the end if we need it. So I'm going to crack on with this. So what I'm doing, I'm using my backpack blower, and I blow all the cores into a line. And when they're in a line, we can rake them into piles, and when they're in piles, we can pick them up and put them into bags. So literally all I'm doing, I'm bagging them up, ready for disposal. So now I'm going to put the horticultural gypsum down, medium setting on the hand spreader, and just walk up and down. So now that we've dealt with what's happening below the ground, aeration, horticultural gypsum, and later when we put the compost top dressing on, that helps below the ground. Now we're doing above the ground. So we need to rake out as much of the moss and thatch, which is sponginess in the lawn, as we can. When we've done that, we'll see grooves, and those grooves allow you to get seeds in which touch the soil for good germination rates. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my scarifier to scarify the lawn or rake the lawn. There's some blades that spin around in there, and I will use my hand scarifier for going around the edges and little tight corners where this machine physically can't get. Let's crack on. Third coffee in hour and a half. I'm doing really well. I've never had this many coffees on a job, but I'm going to need loo pretty soon. So we've just gone over once with the scarifier, and it's teased some moss and some thatch out, but there's still quite a bit in. So I'm going to go over a second time, but on a slightly different angle, to try and get more out. And I was on the lightest setting, but even though we're on the lightest setting, we were still putting grooves in the soil. So it's not a bad height to be scarifying at, but we're going to go over a second time. And I'm going to use my hand scarifier, which is this. It's made by Wolfgarten. Fantastic bits of kit, really are. 10-year warranty. And I'm going to go around the edges where the machine physically can't get, like right round there, and close to the edge as well. You see, the machine can only come up to about there, which leaves like a 2-inch gap all the way around. Unfortunately, that's the machine, that's the width, and the blades come to about there, so they're in that section halfway along. So we'll crack on, we'll get that sorted. Now this is actually one of the slowest, hardest, most laborious parts, is hand raking, especially going all the way around the edges. But it's one of them things that has to be done. Now, some companies don't do this. Some companies just scarify as close to the edge as they can. And actually for a few years that's what I did. But there was always a line around the edge where it had not been raked, and it just didn't quite look right. And to be fair, that didn't sit right with me. So I started using the hand scarifier around the edges so that the overall lawn looks as good as it possibly can. And yeah, it's hard work and it adds time on, but it's worth it, especially when it's your own lawn. So I'm just raking up the piles that have come out from around the edges there, and then we're going to go over again and get this second scarify done. So you can see on this time we're actually going on a 45-degree angle compared to when we scarified across from left to right. And this just maximises the amount of material that we can drag out of the lawn to give the best chances of overall good germination. So we've gone over again. We've got to get as much of that spongy layer out as we can and thin the moss out so there's plenty of soil to get those seeds in. Once the seed touches soil, we'll get good seed to soil germination. So now we've done all the preparation. We've cleared out the rubbish in the lawn. We've helped to improve the soil with the gypsum and the aeration. Now this is the final cleanup. And what we're doing, we're just using the blower, blowing everything into sort of a line, into piles, and then using the long handled leaf grabbers into the bin before a final mow. Now the reason we do a final mow is because even though you've raked everything up, there is still always some bits of stuff left on the ground which you can't always see. So it's really good to get a mow on. Right, so you can see what we have done to this point in time. Everything is thinned out. Okay, we can see soil because we want the seeds to touch soil. And it's really important. And where it's really bare is where it was really mossy. Now, we're going to replace that with seeds, and those seeds will germinate and come through, so it's just going to be lots of grass growing. So this is what we do when you've had a lot of moss. When you're only scarifying, and you do it regular, like twice a year, you will keep things down to a minimum, so it won't ever look this bad. It just looks this bad because of everything what we've done. But it's nice and clean, and it's now ready for the next stage. So we're going to put a little bit more gypsum down. So what is gypsum? Gypsum is calcium sulfate dihydrate. Okay, that's the technical term. And what it means is basically you put it onto soil, specifically clay soil, and as it gets into the soil, it causes the small molecules to bind together, and as they bind together, this creates channels around all the small particles, and those smaller ones become bigger particles, so you end up with little microscopic channels, which improves drainage. And this process is called flocculation. Look at him with big words. Hey, look at him with big words. What's that all about? Yeah, I know, it's absolutely crazy, isn't it? But hey ho, he likes his big words, doesn't he? So we're going to get some more gypsum down on here. We got some on earlier, and I was trying to get it down the aeration holes, so it will have a bit of an effect deeper down in the soil. I'm going to put some more on now so it sits on the surface, and will eventually wash in and do what it needs to do. So it's going to improve drainage quite a bit. So this is granular gypsum. You can get powdered versions as well. So I'm going to get this on, just walk up and down, apply it, and then we're going to start the next stage. And now we're going to do the same with some pre-seed fertilizer. Don't worry about brands, makes, this, that and the other. Any pre-seed fertilizer or any fertilizer which is low in nitrogen, N, P and K are the values on the front. When it's high in nitrogen, the N will be very high, something like 20, 24, 30 or even 40. That is very high. You want it low, typically 10 or below, something like that, and they're all roughly about the same. Even an autumn fertilizer will help so much because it's going to help root germination and root development, so to speak. So this is my pre-seed fertilizer. I'm going to crack on and get this done. And now what we're going to do, put the seeds in. However you do it is up to you. There's lots of ways. You get some in your hands and scatter them about, but it's windy, they're going to blow in borders and not going to be happy because there's grass in the borders. And it's the same with these hand spreaders. Great for spreading most seeds, and it's nice and fast and quick. But with the wind, it's going to blow and go into the borders, so it's not super accurate. So the best one for today's job, because there's some wind, is a little Scott's drop spreader. I'm going to pop it in there. I've opened the maximum setting up with this green handle to maximum. I'll have to go over probably twice, squeeze the trigger, walk up and down, and it will deposit seeds all over the lawn. Always follow the instructions for how much you need to put on the ground. I don't, and I think you can do it without it as well. Unless you are in such an extreme perfection orientated sort of situation where it's got to be like Wembley Stadium, I wouldn't worry too much. The main thing is don't create big piles, don't have them on top of each other. Each one of those seeds is a plant, okay? And they're going to grow and cause other shoots to come out and thicken up. So the idea is you probably want a bit of a gap, maybe ½ centimetre between each seed, roughly. Don't sweat it too much. So I'm just going to crack on with this, and literally comes out here, so just the wheel slightly onto here, and squeeze the trigger and walk. Now that's okay, but I will go over a second time just so we've got a slightly better coverage. So I'm going to crack on with this. We'll see you in a sec. So when I'm laying seeds down on the ground, I'm just looking for a general sort of even coverage. What I find is, as I've already said, is that I have to go over 2 times with this spreader. But I've read in some of the comments that their spreaders are a little bit more generous. So that was the first time. Now we're going over the second time. And if you see any bare spots, you'll probably need to put a few extra seeds down. Right, so we are... Where are we? Are we? Where? Yeah, we might be. We're going to put some top dressing on just to cover the seeds. Compost, multi-purpose compost. So what we want to do, we need to cover the seeds just to stop the birds really, but it also helps get some organic stuff into the ground. Try and wear some gloves because you end up with black fingers for a few days watching these. Now there's a few ways of doing this. You can dump it in a pile and use a brush or a rake to work it all around, or you can use a compost roller. I'm going to show you the first method. Okay, you can use a brush, you can use a rake, I'm going to show you that. So I've only got my landscaping rake, but it's the same thing. Use the back flat edge, okay, and just drag everything around. Work it backwards and forwards. So that's one bag, about 7, 8, 10 square metres, something like that, out of a bag. Depends on the actual compost you're using. Some of them go a bit further, some don't. And the final option is to use a compost spreader. In and push it around. So it's just a case of rinse and repeat. Fill your compost spreader up, dump your piles over the lawn, and just keep going until you've covered it all. The compost spreader gives a good even coverage, and you don't need to do much work afterwards other than sort of just rubbing it in a little bit. But by and large, it's one of my favourite ways to get the dressing onto the lawn. So what you're doing here is you are protecting the seeds from the birds, the wind, and any sort of really strong, heavy rain and things like that. Okay, so you can see what we've done. We've covered with a layer of compost. We've still got to work it in because we've got piles of it here on top of the existing grass, and the existing grass cannot see the sunlight. So what you have to do with a glove is just go like that. So it knocks it off of the top and it falls in between the blades of grass. Now, you don't really want to do that across the whole of your lawn. So again, you can use your broom, the back of a rake, or you can use a lawn levelling lute, which I will show you now. Now these are used for levelling, but these little ridges here drag compost off of a high spot and it falls into a low spot. So you can literally just drag it across, you can work it like so for the same result. Just hang in there because the best is yet to come. Now you can just drag it across like so and then backwards, or again you could use the back of a rake like so, or you can use a brush, but be careful with a brush, nice and light, like so. I have to say that the lawn levelling lute is my favourite way to work all the compost in. You literally just walk over the lawn and drag it across, and I'm just hand filling in any little spots which seem a little bit bare, but we're getting there, we're just about done. Now you could quite happily leave this like this and good, all brilliant, fantastic, nice new lawn in a few weeks time, as long as you keep watering. But while it's dry and there's no rain, there's another step we can do. It's a roller, and when you roll it, it's pushing everything down a bit, it's squeezing the seeds into the soil. Remember those grooves? The seeds go in, we squash it all together. Good seed to soil contact. Alright, now what I will say is don't go like that, okay, because the seeds underneath are going to twist and turn and move out of position, and when it's all come up you're going to be left with little gaps. So very carefully turn at the ends as best you can. Just be aware of it, be mindful. So all of these steps are optional, other than when you scarify and aerate and get to the point of putting seed on. But all these extra steps make the extra difference and give better chances of success. So there's one more step you can do which will improve things even further. The more of these steps you can get into your lawn renovation, the better the outcome. Now you've seen the seeds that have got a picture of water, and it's called aqua coating technology. Okay, it's basically a wetting agent which helps seeds to germinate because it helps to hold water around the seeds and around the roots, which does it the world of good. So if you're not good at watering, this is going to save you back. Now I've got something called Emerald Green, which is my own mixture of wetting agent plus a few secret goodies, which really sort of turbo boost things. So all you need to do is apply over the lawn and give everything a really good watering in. So I'm going to crack on, get this on now, and then we'll get things watered in, and then we're just about there. So we'll have some final thoughts, and then yeah. So that's it. You've got to keep things watered depending on the heat, it depends on how fast things dry out. So the warmer it gets, the more you've got to water. The main thing you want to be doing is keeping these seeds nice and damp for the next month. So normally a couple of times a day, watering 5 to 10 minutes would be plenty. Absolutely fine. If it gets really hot, then up it to 3 times a day, potentially 4 times a day. If we get a heat wave, just keep going up. You've got to keep them damp for about a month. Once that month is up, once the seeds are all up, and usually about the 3-week, 4-week mark, if it's hotter, they'll come up even faster. At that point, you've still got to water, but you can cut back. So I would go through the rest of summer watering once or twice a week deeply, okay? Because it'll look nice on the top, but the roots will still be shallow. And if you don't water, it's going to keel over and die. Take care. Catch you again.